Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. Apologies for being a little bit late. I had huge issues with trying to get this live. I think it was because I was on Twitch earlier. But are Manchester United going to cancel, postpone Cody Gakpo transfer and go for a plan B? This is what we're talking about. Well, I think this is what we're talking about tonight. Apparently I'm not live. I don't know. I did say I'd had problems tonight. Don't know. Oh, we are live. Okay, we are live. Great. Good old YouTube. 15 minutes late. Magnificent. Okay, so let me get back on track. So are Manchester United about to postpone a Cody Gakpo deal and go for plan B? What's this all about, I hear you say? Well, there was an update from Fabrizio Romano today basically saying that Manchester United remain interested in Cody Gakpo. They're in contact with his agents and now it's about the budget. How much Manchester United want to invest in January. Now, there is a theory that Manchester United do not want to invest hardly anything in January and therefore may go for a plan B, which is a loan deal, and rely on people such as Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial to provide the goals alongside a loan option. It's not really something that we've considered, but the reason for United doing this would be financial. They don't want to get hung out to dry in January and massively overpay for Gakpo or anybody else they might fancy. Or maybe there's a striker they more fancy in the summer. So it's always the budget, says Elijah. Hi Mark, been going through a hard breakup 9 years together, says Justin. Just wanted to thank you and the rest of the team and community for helping me smile. Big shout out to Justin. Hope you're doing well, Justin. Stay strong, pal. And I'm glad to have you with us. So yeah, I think that, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting because when Fabrizio Romano gives an update like that, and we know how this club operates, I suppose, as much as I don't believe it, I suppose we've got to acknowledge the fact that there may be a scenario where Manchester United don't spend in January because of whatever reason, and push this to a potential summer deal. I did say at the weekend when we were linked to Bellingham and De Jong from very credible sources, is there a mentality drive from the club to push our attention towards this summer that was going to be amazing because they don't want to spend in January? It happened last year. It's happened in the past. Glazers, get your wallet out. Go, Justin, says Tumbleweed. Look, I actually do think that if we weren't proposing new owners, we'd probably sit here and go, this is exactly what's going to happen. We won't spend in January. Because if you go back 2 months ago, the club made it very, very clear that, I think it was Murta said it in September, they don't intend to spend money. They don't intend to spend money like they did in the summer. That they don't intend to do that sort of thing again. And they don't like the January. I mean, they have publicly put it out there that they don't like the January transfer window. That they think that business is done better in the summer. So you can't not acknowledge the fact that they might go down that route. And just going back to what Fabrizio Romano said, that the contacts there have been with the agents, but it's whether Manchester United decide to go ahead or not. I mean, I would say, why have we not decided to go ahead already? I'm not saying that Fabrizio Romano or any other journalist has got the SP on what United are doing in January, but I think they would know the way the modern transfer world knows. If United were going to announce Cody Gakpo on January the 1st, I think we would know something about that 12 days before, which is what we are at now. So I am a little bit concerned that we are, still hearing about, contact with the agent, but not with PSV. Now that can happen very, very quickly, but again, why is this? Why are we not getting this done right at the start of January? Why would Man United go and allow this to, rumble on into January? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Marcus Thuram from Gladbach, United pursue Real, says Frostbite. Not heard anything about that. I mean, he would be available for cheap, but no, not heard anything about that. Cody Gakpo would certainly be the player that we would be looking at most of all. And what would Plan B, Mark? What would Plan B be, Mark? Plan B would be relying on Anthony Martial, which in itself is a very thin ice plan, and Marcus Rashford as a striker, which many of us don't really think that's what he is. Even if you decided to play Marcus Rashford as a striker, which you can do, not really going to play the same way as you did with Anthony Martial or a proper number 9. I think Marcus is a good striker to play if you want to hit a few long balls and but not in the way I think Ten Hag wants to play. I think Rashford's better with the ball at his feet, running at the back four, not with his ball back to goal. So plan B would be Rashford and Martial, and I presume a loan. I mean, we've got to do something. You can't just go, we're not spending money in January. You have to do something. You can't just go, well, we'll use Martial and Rashford, because if Martial gets injured, which he will, you're relying on a winger up front, which is Marcus Rashford. We don't have anybody ready to come from the youth, and we don't have enough options. So you'd be right. Effectively, you'd be writing the season off, wouldn't you? You'd be writing the season off before it's even begun. We'd be writing the season off in January. Palestri should be given a chance. Merry Christmas, United Stand team, says Paul. Yeah, obviously Palestri is not a right back, so it's not a striker. I have a feeling that United will leave it till the end of January and try to get a better deal, which would be stupid, says Min. I would agree. It has that feel about it, doesn't it? We might not buy anybody, and then we end up paying what we would have paid at the start of January and late January. The only way I can stomach a loan is if in the summer we get Osman, says Daniel Kirk. And what would we do as a loan deal? I mean, we've mentioned João Felix in the past, but that deal seems to have gone very, very quiet. I don't know. I mean, Master Miller says, "Why are you obsessed with Gakpo? He isn't that good." I'm not signing anybody. I'm not obsessed with anybody. I go with the flow. I go with the story, and the story is that Eric Ten Hag wants Cody Gakpo, and he wanted him in August. So that's why it's not an obsession. It's a story led by fact. He is the most likely player. All the bookies have him as virtually evens to join Manchester United. We tried to buy him in the summer. He's the most logical player that we're going to go for as Cristiano Ronaldo's replacement. So it's not me driving it. It's the the facts of the story that we've had. AJ Wolf says it screams of Memphis Depay. Well, I've said this time and time again, and I do think that Memphis Depay being Dutch, available, free, this is a typical Ighalo sort of deal, and I think Memphis is much better than Ighalo, but it's a cheap deal instead of a real deal. And look, I go back to what Fabrizio said. The conversations have taken place with the agents. It's whether the budget is there to do it. It's always the same now with all transfer windows, says Tumbleweed. I suppose the interesting thing is, if you analyse it like that, if we've spoken to Gakpo and Ten Hag wants Gakpo and Gakpo wants to come to Manchester United, and it all just comes down to the budget, do Manchester United have the budget? The short answer is probably not. We probably don't have 50 million to spend in January. And I was thinking about this before I went live, and I was trying to sort the stream out. I was like, 50 million is not an insignificant amount of money to spend in January. And we are sort of just get Gakpo. But by saying just get Gakpo, we are actually saying spend 50 million quid as well. So I think that is a really interesting situation as to, it's not just as simple as saying go and sign Cody Gakpo. It is about, have we got 50 million pounds to spend? If loan in February, Pulisic would be a lead runner, says Frostbite. We're not going to get Pulisic though, are we? Because he's a Chelsea player. And do you agree Eric Ten Hag leading United to League Cup trophy will buy him time and fend off naysayers like Arteta when he won the FA Cup? Or is Eric Ten Hag on the hot seat already, says Hey. No, he's absolutely fine. I don't think Eric Ten Hag needs to even win a trophy this season, to be honest. I think he's absolutely fine. Don't know what anyone else thinks. But MKF says, don't you think that this is the board's ploy to drive the price down? No, I don't think so, because I think that PSV have already been quite clear that of what they would sell Gakpo for. I think this just comes down to, Wayne says, roll on Wednesday, roll on the new owners. Hope you're well, Mark, says Wayne. Thank you very much, Wayne. Appreciate that. I think that let me just get rid of this idiot in the chat. Where is he? Oh, he keeps defying me. Let's get rid of you. Thank you very much. I don't think that's the case. I think that United have either got the money to do this deal or they won't do the deal. And sometimes as a manager, you've got to accept when a club says we haven't got any money. There's, Ten Hag wouldn't be the first manager in history who's been told there's no money available, and that might be the case. But it's not like there is an alternative. If we didn't go and sign the player that Ten Hag wants, which I believe is Gakpo for 45 million, it's not like there's a striker out there for 30 million. Now, somebody mentioned Thuram there. Thuram is available. Obviously, he was part of the French squad. He probably would be available for about 15 million quid. But if he's never registered on Erik ten Hag's list, what would be the point in spending 15 million on him? You know, I do and have always said I have a feeling that we could go for Memphis. Now, if we signed Memphis, I wouldn't sit here and have a tantrum about it. He's a good player who would definitely benefit our squad compared to nothing. The thing is he the player that Erik ten Hag really wants, or is he a stopgap option that doesn't become a stopgap option because he will be, you know, he will be part of the team for the next 4 years. I mean, he's 28. Daniel Kirk says Fabrizio's new Wan-Bissaka tweet, small half update. Let's have a quick look at that then. So Fabrizio Romano is saying this: Manchester United are trying to find a solution for Wan-Bissaka in order to let him leave. Wolves, West Ham and Crystal Palace remain interested. Main priority on right-back situation remains to extend Diego Dalot's contract. Talks will place soon. Well, we spoke about that before, haven't we? So it's an interesting little update on that, because I always knew that West Ham and Palace were interested, and now Wolves are interested. We're not going to sell Wan-Bissaka in January, by the way. I wish we would. I think it'd be better for all parties if we could. But a loan deal is a halfway house to selling him. If Wan-Bissaka, what we need to do, Rashford and Depay would be monsters as Kiel. A lot of people like Memphis. We'll come back to him in a minute. Franklin says Gakpo was never coming anyway. Recent injury records are horrible, says Kyle. I don't know who's talking about Memphis there. But just go back to that Memphis point there. That Wan-Bissaka point there. If West Ham want him on loan, and Crystal Palace want him on loan, and Wolves want him on loan, it's not just about what Wan-Bissaka wants. It's about what's best for Manchester United. Because if we send him on loan to Wolves and he's a backup right back until May, we're back where we are now in the summer. But if we send him to West Ham and he plays every game at right back, then suddenly we're getting 20 million in the summer. So we've got to make sure that where he goes, he plays, because he's good enough. I will argue with anybody who says that Wan-Bissaka is a bad footballer. He's not a bad footballer. He's a very, very competent right back. What he's not is a modern day top four back, up and down fullback. That's not what he is. He's a defensive right back, and he works well in a team that's going to defend a lot. And Crystal Palace, Wolverhampton Wanderers and West Ham in the Premier League are going to do a lot more defending than the top four teams that need their fullbacks to get back and forth. So I think there's a good move for Aaron Wan-Bissaka there, and I think if we can get him one of those moves, it's good that there's 2 or 3 Premier League clubs looking at him. So hopefully one of those loans can get done very, very quickly. He goes off, he does well, he secures a move in the summer, everybody's happy. I could see the Glazers going for the cheap option in Memphis, figuring they are selling and will wash their hands of the club anyway, says Stephen. I think that with this situation, and if you've joined us a little bit late, there is a bit of a theory that, Romano has said that United can buy Gakpo, it's just whether the budget's there. And there's a bit of a theory that United will postpone Gakpo and go for a loan deal in the summer, in January. The thing you've got to look at there is, sometimes that's a good idea. But in this case, it's just pure Glazeronomics, because if they know they're selling that club for 6 billion quid, does it really matter if they spend 50 million pounds on Cody Gakpo in January? No. What's 50 million pounds in the grand scheme of making billions? And they're going to make billions. Now, they might do it just because they're so tight they want to save 50 million. But the point I'm making is they bought the club for under $1 billion, and it wasn't even their money. They're going to sell the club for 6 billion. They're going to make $1 billion each. They're going to make huge profit. So does it really matter to them if they spend £50 million on a player in January? No, it doesn't. And also, you've got to factor in that the problem that I suppose, the thing that worries me the most is that I think if I'm buying Manchester United, love the streams, Mark, thanks for everything, says Ben, thank you very much. If I'm buying Manchester United, and I know I'm buying Manchester United, and the January transfer window is coming, I'm on the phone to the Rain Group and I'm telling them to get me in contact with the Glazers, and I'm saying, buy Cody Gakpo in January. And they might go, well, we're in charge. And I'd say, but I'm buying the club. You know I'm buying the club. and I want you to buy Cody Gakpo in January because it's part of the development that we want to be building this club with. And that's a very logical thing to ask. But if the Glazers don't know who's buying the club, how can that person be saying to the Glazers, buy Cody Gakpo? They're doing it blind. If they don't know who's buying the club yet, it's on them whether they want to spend in January. Now, they should logically think like that. Well, clearly this makes the club more attractive if we do buy Cody Gakpo. But if we haven't secured a new buyer, they haven't got that new buyer saying, look, I know we've not bought the club yet, but we're in the process of buying it, buy Cody Gakpo because it helps us. And, you know, we're happy to swallow that 50 million. We might not have someone in the situation to do that, but the Glazers should certainly be thinking a bit like that because it makes Manchester United a more attractive football club. What do I think is going to happen? I do think that we will sign Cody Gakpo. I mean, I'm not going to give a percentage on it. I've already said 70%, but it's the most logical deal to do. It's the deal that Ten Hag wants to happen, and I think it absolutely needs to happen. There is no way that United can sit there in no football club. Forget it's Manchester United for a moment. No football club in Manchester United's position should this January go, yeah, we'll postpone signing the player we need to sign and we'll just try and get by with a loan deal. No football club that's ambitious should do that. A football club that's owned by the Glazers could do it, but no football club would do that because we're in 4 trophies. We're not in the top 4. We've lost a striker. The other striker has hardly been fit, and we didn't replace Cavani either. Goals win games, and we don't have enough people to score goals. So if you are anything like a footballer club in January, in those situations where you're not in the top 4 yet, you've got 4 trophies to play for, you didn't replace Cavani in the summer, Ronaldo's gone, Martial's always injured, Rashford's a winger, you don't just go and go, let's get by. Let's get a loanee in who might and might not work. It's a big season. It's a very competitive season. We talk about getting top 4, but if we don't buy a striker, we could finish below Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, Newcastle. We could finish 7th quite comfortably if we don't act. So we have to act, and I think the most logical way of acting is to invest in the way that's going to help you. There's no point going for something short term when you need to do something long term. Mark, this is an amazing community, says Justin. Thanks for the replies in the chat. I think United will spend all January on Gakpo, then let's say there was no time for a right back, says Justin. Yeah, well, you know, if we don't act, we're screwed, says Melps, and I agree with that. And we should replace Rashford with Gakpo. Rashford wants over 300k a week. Feeding kids is not enough to be paid 300k. Rashford needs PSG if he wants to win. That's from LZ. I mean, look, I don't really get the Rashford problems. I think ever since Eric Ten Hag's come in, he's got, you know, he's knuckled down. He's worked hard. He's done well in the World Cup. He's done well for us. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, but I don't agree with the Rashford criticism. As people know, I'm a fan of Rashford, and I think there's a lot more to come from him. Frostbite says Weston McKennie and Yunus Musa target Premier League clubs. I like Musa. I do like Musa, but obviously he's not a player we're going to be looking at. And would you take Depay or a cheaper loan if it was the only way to bring in a right back in January as well, says James. Look, I'm not opposed to Memphis, and I'm not naive to the fact that 45 or 50 million pounds for Cody Gakpo is a lot of money, especially when we spent 200 million pounds in the summer. But tell me what we're going to do in January, or tell me what we should do in January, because as far as I'm concerned, we have to do something. And we can't just go, oh, everything's fine, let's not bother. We have to do something in January, and we have to do something that makes us compete with Newcastle and Spurs for top 4, and compete for the Europa League, and compete for trophies. And, you know, you can learn a lot from recent history, and the cold, harsh truth is that Anthony Martial has not been fit enough, and Marcus Rashford is only at the start of his, you know, reignition to being, you know, a Manchester United player. You've got to have more options. Jedi Knight says January Depay, that's your lot. Well, it's this week that Memphis Depay is meant to be making a decision. If he is to be the option, it does improve us But it's not really. It's not. Again, it's not a player that everyone else is queuing up to take, is it? You know, I don't. I think Memphis flopped at Barcelona. I think he did well in the French league, but he's highly unlikely to come to Manchester United and be part of an amazing future, is he? And I just think it would be a rather lacklustre signing. But on the other hand, maybe you bring him in on a 5-month loan. I don't know. I mean, I don't think Memphis Depay is going to sign for Manchester United for 6 months. I think the scenario I would go if I look, I think we should buy what Ten Hag wants, and I think we all know that Ten Hag wants Cody Gakpo. So it might be £50 million in January, but he wanted him in the summer as well, and he'll want him next summer. So look at what Liverpool did with Diaz. Bought him in January, really important player. We bought Bruno in January, really important player. You can't. I don't like this mentality that United put out there that they like to buy in the summer. This is a modern football world now, and January can be a brilliant time. Look at Spurs. I know there were loan deals, but Kulusevski and Bentancur got them top 4. If they didn't get those 2 players, they wouldn't have got top 4. So you can't just put it out there that the January transfer window is not a good time to buy. It is. It's a good time to do deals. Now those deals can be loan deals. If we could loan Memphis in until the summer and then he becomes a free agent and we can make a decision or not, then maybe that works. But I think Memphis Depay is going to have more offers where he actually takes a club permanently. I mean, like Everton would probably go for Memphis and give him a 3-year deal. Is João Felix on a loan in January still a possibility? Has Erik Ten Hag ever played with a false 9? Yes, he has, Adam. He has done that before, and João Felix is always a possibility, yes. And I think a loan deal is the sort of deal that Atletico Madrid should be looking at. Sally Devil Red 7 has gifted 5 United Stand memberships. Legend of the moderating crew and now a legend of the chat again. Big shout out to Sally for gifting 5 memberships. Remember, if you are a member, you can gift memberships. It's not just me who can do it. Renate did 5 this morning. Sally's done 5 today. Legend of the chat. And if you are somebody who benefits from that, you've got your badge next to your name for a month, and you can check out our exclusive extra content. Remember, it will lapse after a month, but if you want to join, that's how you do it. Real question though, if no January moves, threat of no European competition next year, other clubs seem to be targeting big players. Frostbite, I don't need to, teach everybody in this chat to suck eggs. If we qualify for the Champions League, we generate around 40 to 60 million pounds. If we don't qualify for the Champions League, we don't generate 40 to 60 million pounds. If you buy Cody Gakpo, do you have a better chance of making the Champions League? Yes, you do. And also, we're about to get new owners. This signing is not about Champions League. It's about new owners, and that's why we should be doing it. Mark, please expand on the 70% as opposed to the 90% you were with De Jong, says Alex. Well, I'm happy to talk about that because I do still have this to hand. People take the piss out of my 90% on Frankie De Jong. But even in the last 2 days, we've had clarity on what was actually out there in January, in the summer. It was constantly put out there. Merta and Arnold went to Barcelona. It was constantly put out there that Frankie de Jong was privately open to joining Manchester United. But publicly, he kept saying he wanted to stay at Barcelona. But privately, many credible people were saying publicly as well that Frankie de Jong was open to joining Manchester United. So I was 90% on that because I felt that we publicly declared our interest in him in May and continued it all the way through to August. So I was very confident we would do it. It didn't happen. Getting Depay would be penny wise to be pound foolish. It would be better than doing nothing, but it doesn't raise chances of making top 4, says Stephen. Yeah, I think there's more chance of Memphis flopping in the Premier League as well. I think there's more chance of Memphis becoming disgruntled and unsettled. I think Cody Gakpo is taking a step up. I like players like that. I like players like Bruno, Malacia, Martinez. These players, Diaz at Liverpool, Fabinho at Liverpool. I like these players who are at clubs where they've done well and they've earned their reputation, but they're ready to step up. And Cody Gakpo is ready to step up. And those type of players know that to step up, they've got to work hard, get their head down and be, focused. Memphis Depays, who are 28 and have played at Barcelona and Man United, and they've already done the step up and they're almost doing a side step or a step down. Is that motivation there? And I would much rather we were going for players that were hungry for the project than players that are desperate for a project. How do you get the free memberships when they're gifted, says Ash? Yeah, you don't click a button, it just automatically allocates it to people in the live chat. It's an algorithm thing, I think. Tommy Pryor, welcome to the Members Club. Shaq says, if we get Felix on loan, it will give us time for a new owner, and if he plays for us, we can buy him when the loan ends. That's why I think Plan B should be. As long as it's a good option on Plan B. It's important to get the players with the good mentality, says Rohit. Yeah, I agree with that. And Manchester United is very unpredictable. They can discuss Gakpo, then at the end of the January transfer window, they sign him out of the Blues, says Collins G. It's not just that, though. It's not just that. It's I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that we have got a very hectic January in the Cup and in the Premier League. And I don't think that United could be so naive to think, oh yeah, we'll be fine until the end of January. Like, you bring a player in at the end of January, they've then got to adjust, haven't they? In January, we're playing Manchester City and Arsenal, as well as a load of cup games that are important. Can we afford to play Man City and Arsenal without having the striker that we desperately need? Ray Carl, thank you very much for joining the Members Club. Appreciate it, pal. Hope you're doing well. So it's not just about whether we are going to do a deal, whether we're going to do a Plan B, or whether we're going to spend 50 million or not. It's about how quick we're going to do it. There's no excuse for not doing it quick. I said this last week. As much as the Ronaldo interview was frustrating, 503 Nick, welcome to the Members Club, thank you. As much as Ronaldo's interview was frustrating, there was a huge positive for United. Now, some people will say the huge positive was Ronaldo leaving because some people wanted him to go. But the huge positive for me was that, and there wasn't a lot of positives in it, I admit, was that Ronaldo told United that he was leaving at the start of November. And some people say, well, he didn't say that. I mean, the minute he did the interview, he was leaving. That was, mutiny on the bounty. He had to go. And Man United knew that at the start of November. So they've had 2 months to figure out that Ronaldo's leaving and get a replacement in. If they're still sat there twiddling their thumbs now, going, I don't know, that's a disgrace. John Murta, Richard Arnold, they've known for 2 months. They should have something lined up by now. I know they can't agree a deal with a player that's at the World Cup, but they can talk to his agent, which they did in the summer, and they can sound PSV out about what it would take to buy him. Those conversations should have taken place. And if they haven't, you've got to question why, when they knew Ronaldo was going at the start of November, we're at the end of December and they still don't know what they're going to do. Manchester United need to know the plan, and they need to know it now, and they need to follow through on it next week. Because if we are going to get Memphis, get him in for January the 1st. If we are going to get Cody Gakpo, get him in for January the 1st. If we're not getting either of those two and we're getting someone else, get them in for January the 1st, because we've got big games in January, and we won't be out of the Europa League in January, but we could be out of the top 4 race. We could be out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. So we need to use it. It's better to be safe than sorry in this January transfer window. What if we lose Rashford and Martial due to injury in February? What would we do then? Says Carry0. Yeah, and as well as that, what if you buy your striker at the end of January? They've lost a month of bedding themselves in. The Genius Knows, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it. Why is Erik Ten Hag being treated more like Rangnick when it comes to the prospect of transfers in the January window, and less like Ollie where he got Bruno? Good point, Stephen. I mean, I don't like comparing this January transfer window with last January transfer window. That frustrated the life out of me. I was talking about Enzo Fernandez today on a podcast I was doing, and it was actually Neil Robertson, the snooker player, and he was saying that, one player, I think United, we're talking about what one player you'd take from the World Cup realistically. Not Messi or Mbappe was basically the thing. And he was saying that for Manchester United, Enzo Fernandez would be perfect. And I said to him, we could have got Enzo Fernandez last January. Like Ralph Rangnick recommended Man United, went for him at Boca Juniors, and United was he at Boca Juniors or River Plate, one of the two, and United ignored it, and they ignored Alvarez, and they ignored other deals. But it was not acceptable. We wrote the season off in January last year, and it's not acceptable to do that. But United's cover was always, well, he's not a full-time manager. We're waiting for a full-time manager in the summer. But what's the excuse this time? That won't work. And it didn't work last year anyway. They weren't right to wait until the summer because we didn't get top four and the season imploded. They were wrong not to spend money in January, even though it was for an interim. They should have still done it. It was disastrous not to. But this season, like Stephen says, you can't just go, we're not spending in January because we don't like spending in January. You've got the manager. You've backed him in his first summer. Keep backing him now. I mean, my logic to this is, if they speak to Eric Ten Hag and he says, I want Cody Gakpo, and they go, we don't like spending in January, I would say, if I was Eric Ten Hag, but I wanted him in the summer, and I want him next summer. So why won't you get him in now in January? Because we don't like spending in January. That's preposterous. I wanted him last summer. You didn't get him. I'll want him next summer. You're saying you will get him. So why won't you get him in January? Because we don't like spending in January. But you did it with Bruno and Ollie, and it worked really well. You got top four because of it. We don't like spending in January. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I understand the logic of saying we're not buying in January because there's not a lot of options out there. It's desperation. But if it's the player he wants and he's available in January, why wait till the summer? Maguire sharing more team of the tournament's mark. Generally think his family's blowing smoke up his rear end is an issue, says Joshua Bellwater. I don't get it. I want Harry Maguire to do well. I do want him to do well. But I don't get why he shares compilations of long passes. I don't get why he shares compilations or images of him and the team of the tournament. I've seen team of the tournaments from aggregated websites putting him in it. I'm sorry, they're wrong. They're not wrong. In my opinion, they're wrong because I don't get what he did in that tournament to be in team of the tournament. He got knocked out in the quarterfinals. France scored 2 goals. One of them was his fault. Iran scored 2 goals. One of them was his fault. Didn't play well against USA. And then against Senegal and Wales, we really didn't have that much to do. So how are you defender of the tournament ahead of any of the Moroccan centre-backs who were superb, any of the Argentinian centre-backs that were superb, Vardiel, who was superb, Varane, who was superb. I mean, there's 6 centre-backs there, better than Harry Maguire in that tournament. And I'm not even, there was probably others at other clubs, in other nations as well. So, I mean, look, I'm all for promoting yourself if you're Kylian Mbappe and you've won the Golden Boot, or you're Lionel Messi when you've won the World Cup. Share it on your Instagram story. But sharing pictures of you being in the team of the tournament, it seems a bit beggy. It's a bit like, Eric, look at me, I'm in the team of the tournament, I should be starting for Man United. Even if you were in the team of the tournament, Harry, and well done if you think you were, you're not better than Martinez and Varane. But look, I want him to do well. He's going to play on Wednesday. I want him to play well. I want him to play well against Forest, but I think he needs to get rid of the bloody, it's almost like he's in his number 1 fan club, isn't it? Why do you think we don't sign players early like City and Chelsea? We always pretend to negotiate and pay a lot. Frustrating when City is efficient and rich, says Rohit. Why wouldn't United go for a great player in January? This would help achieve top 4 and ultimately it could attract more buyers, says United have. You've just summarised it perfectly. There's nothing I can say or anyone else can say that's better than that. That's superb. It's the behaviour of a top football club to improve your football squad when you can do it. You can't improve your team in November. You can't improve it in February. You can do it in the summer and you can do it in January. And when you are a club that's so far behind everybody else, how can you ignore a January transfer window and go, we don't like doing that? You basically get... It's like, you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is, because I like an analogy. If United are running a race for the top 4, at the moment we're in 5th place, right? And we're about halfway through the marathon. And we're running and we're in 5th. And there's a drink station halfway through. And Newcastle and Spurs and Arsenal and Chelsea and Liverpool and Man City, they're all having a drink, yeah? They've paid £1 for it, but they're having a drink of, those drinks that, make you feel energetic, Sneak or something like that, or whatever, water, whatever you want, right? they're replenishing their energy for the next half of the race. And what United are doing, if they don't do anything in January, in 5th, is running past that station and saying, we don't like re-energising ourselves because we don't want to give you a pound. We'll carry on with what we've got. It's very obvious what will happen. All those teams that re-energise themselves with an energy drink halfway through, they're going to be revitalised in the second half of the race. If we run past it and we don't take a drink on board, we're clearly going to run out of energy. It's the most simple analogy, and it's true. Because it happened last year. We saw it happen last year. So if we ignore this January transfer window, halfway through a race where we're not even in the top 4, we will run out of energy. And what competitive runner ignores a drink station halfway through a race that they want to get into the top 4? We've got to spend in January. We've got to get rid of Ronaldo. We got rid of Ronaldo, so we have space. This club seems not to learn, says Ray. And also, I think Ray has pointed us to a very important point here. Ronaldo is gone. We will have saved about 6 million already in wages. By the end of the season, we'll have saved another 15 million in wages. So Ronaldo leaving saves this club 20 million. You're not spending 50, you're spending 30. Don't forget that. Hi Mark, don't you think United knew they needed a striker last summer? Ronaldo only had a year max anyway, who's actually the real target, says Mike Music. Yeah, well look, the target in the summer was Darwin Núñez. I mean, I often have thought about this over the last few months because I've shared it with you many times, and I'm sure many of you can deduce what the plan was. When Erik ten Hag came in May, he wanted Darwin Núñez, he wanted Antony, he wanted De Jong, he wanted Malacia, he wanted Dumfries, he wanted Eriksen, and he wanted Timber. Now Timber became Martinez, Eriksen came in, Malacia came in, Casemiro, De Jong became Casemiro, Antony came in. Obviously we didn't get a right back, and we didn't get a striker. Now, it's interesting that if he had got Darwin Núñez, it's not like we would have spent 300 million. He was never going to get everyone on that list, was he? Is what I'm trying to say. Because to get Darwin Núñez a right back would have been another 140 million quid on the 200 we spent. So we were never going to spend 350 million. But he did want Darwin Núñez. So it wasn't like he didn't have an idea of the striker that he wanted. He did want one, but obviously Liverpool got the striker. So I think in the absence of that, you've got to look at what other forwards we went for, and he did want Gakpo in August, and we didn't do the deal. We did inquire about João Felix, but then we went and got Antony. So was João Felix the alternative to Antony? But Cody Gakpo was in a position of his own. Like we were looking at Gakpo and Ronaldo going, and Ronaldo stayed, and we didn't get Gakpo. But Gakpo was never an alternative for Antony because Antony was a very specific player that Ten Hag wanted. Panic buy in January, United can't negotiate, says Philip. They wanted to push Martial and yet again took the risk of doing so, says Tabasco. And Matan says, if you had to renew 3/5 players who has their contract expiring, who mine would be De Gea, Rashi and Delo. If you had to renew 3 of the 5 players you've got, so the 5 players are De Gea, Rashford, Shaw, Fred and Delo. So if I had to renew 5 of those players, Delo, De Gea, it's Rashford or Shaw. It's got to be Rashford, hasn't it? It's got to be Rashford. I really do like Luke Shaw, but if you've asked a good question there, because if I've got to renew 3 out of those 5, Fred I'm not going to renew anyway. So I would actually like to renew 4 of them. I would like to keep Shaw, Rashford, Delo, and De Gea. But if the question was if you had to do 3, well, Fred definitely not, and then I've got to keep De Gea, I've got to keep Delo, and I've got to keep Rashford. So it would have to be Shaw, which is a shame because I would like to keep Shaw. Given Ten Hag's transfer targets in the summer, do you think he underestimated the level of incompetence of the club's executives, says Stephen? Well, Erik Ten Hag is new in the role and he's very positive about his relationship with John Murtough and Richard Arnold. So he's not going to publicly state any issue, and maybe he doesn't have an issue, but the cold, harsh truth is that we overspent on Antony by 30 million. and Cody Gakpo was available for 30 million in August. So, that could have been done, but until we get new owners in, we're not going to get a competent negotiation board anyway. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it Manchester United who parachuted in a transfer lawyer in late June? It was that Michael Keane's brother, wasn't it? I mean, that just shows you the shit show that went on last summer. And I always said, Nigel Norton says, how do you gift memberships? You click the $ and you click membership gifting. That's on desktop though. I don't know how you do it on your mobile. I always said at the time that as much as we got some good players in, and I was very happy with that, the amount of money that we spent was excessive, and we should have had an inquest into how much we spent. We should have done, because it was almost like high five. We did really well in the transfer window, but we didn't. The players we brought in were good. The prices we paid were not. It's never Harry Maguire's fault that we spent £80 million on him. It's never Aaron Wan-Bissaka's fault that we spent £50 million on them. Whether they were right or wrong signings, they were they were stupid prices, but it wasn't their fault. It's not Anthony's fault that we overpaid. He's still a good signing in my opinion. We bought some good players in the summer, but I don't think we bought them well. I thought the negotiations were terrible. I mean, we could have got Anthony in June for about 50, and we didn't. Richard Arnold and John Mater don't look like competent people during transfer situations, says Collins. Raid Juventus, says Tabasco. And Jesus says we need to buy younger and cheaper. Have you been a good boy this year? And you expecting anything nice from Santa, says Rory C. I don't know this year. I haven't thought about it that much, really. I tell you what, talking about years, I mean, I'm glad you reminded me about that. Look, he was Manchester United player of the year. He was Manchester United's top scorer. His name is Cristiano Ronaldo, and he is a Manchester United legend. Thanks for being a member for 6 months, Nigel Norton, by the way. And he... I mean, look, I love Ronaldo. I think it's very popular at the moment to just have a pop at him. But what a horrific year he's had. I mean, if empathy exists in you, surely that has to kick in at some point. What a horrific year Cristiano Ronaldo has had. Privately, obviously, he lost one of his children. And then this summer, it's just been all over the place, didn't go on the tour. Then, we've had the storming off with the Spurs game. Then we've had the interview. Then he's had the World Cup, and then Lionel Messi's lifted the World Cup. I mean, it's just been a completely ridiculously bad year for him. And I have said, I've been thinking about this. Look, I've not been quiet in my praise for Lionel Messi, and I think the pictures of him with the World Cup are iconic, especially when he was on the shoulders of those Argentinian players. It reminded me of '86. Not the sort of pictures you expect to happen in the modern day. It was iconic. But I did think last night and again today, look, Ronaldo, it's almost fashionable to kick Ronaldo when he's down, isn't it? And he's still one of the greatest players that's ever played the game. And I think it's important to remember that. It's a very English media thing to do, to build somebody up and then absolutely destroy them. And I feel like everyone's taking a bite out of Ronaldo at the moment, and a bit of empathy goes a long way. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain. Ronaldo's made mistakes in the last 6 months. Maybe he should have retired in the summer. Maybe that was the time to go, because none of this stuff would have happened. But he clearly is somebody that's very motivated and still wants to be and still believes he can be the best, and that's the hardest battle of all, because he clearly has an issue with being the best now. But I don't like he's an easy target at the moment, and I think people display their short-termism and recency bias, because I always said it in the prime years of Ronaldo and Messi, where they were winning Ballon d'Ors and Champions Leagues. I always said, look, that's the conversation. And I've heard people saying, well, Mbappe will eclipse them both because he's won a World Cup, he's nearly won a second, and he's scored loads of World Cup goals. Not everything's about your national team. George Best never played in a World Cup, and he's one of the best players that ever played the game. So if George Best had been Brazilian, he'd have won 3 World Cups. So it's not all about what you do in your national team. And at 23, neither Messi or Ronaldo were hiding in the French league. And Mbappe needs to get out of the French league because at 23, Messi and Ronaldo were already tearing it up. So I think Mbappe's a fantastic player, but he needs to get out of the French league. And even if he does, he will never, ever eclipse Messi or Ronaldo. Because if you think Mbappe is going to eclipse Messi and Ronaldo, you never saw Messi and Ronaldo at their best, did you? Because Mbappe's not that. Cristiano Ronaldo was playing on the right wing for Manchester United in the Premier League. He won the Ballon d'Or and he scored 40 goals from the right wing. Lionel Messi was getting the ball and running from the halfway line past 6 or 7 players and passing it in the goal on the regular. Like, they're just different levels of players. And you either know that or you're having a laugh. Messi and Ronaldo are 2 of the greatest players that have ever played the game in any era. And it's important to remember that because Ronaldo may have fell off. He may have had a bad year. But if you don't realise what he is as a footballer, and because he earned it, I don't get why everyone's enjoying his decline, because he is, without question, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Thoughts on Aaron Wan-Bissaka Kufal swap? No, thank you. Wheels. No. No. Not at all. And there's a lot of people getting involved there, but look, Mark says they both won a couple of Ballon d'Ors by his age. There is no player in the modern game playing football right now that will hold a candle to Messi or Ronaldo. I'll tell you that now. There is nobody playing. Nobody. I'd love Garnacho to do it. Not going to do it. There's no player of that quality out there at the moment. Hopefully we will get one in the next few years, but right now there's some really good talents. There's some world-class talents. Neymar's world-class, but Neymar's nowhere near the level of Messi and Ronaldo, and Mbappe won't be either. As much as people want it to be the case because they want to live in that era. Some of you won't have remembered what it was like living in the Ronaldo-Messi era, but I'm telling you now, there's nobody. And there was nobody before them, really. Zidane was brilliant, but Zidane's not on that level. There's been players on Zidane's level. Marco van Basten was on that level. But the Maradonas of this world, the Messis of this world, the Ronaldos of this world, they're in a unique category. There can be only a few of them. And we've been counting them since the days of Pele. Like, there's not many of them. People think that Messi retires and Ronaldo goes on the decline and we'll have another 2. No, that's not how it works. I've been watching football for decades. That's not how it works. Lothar Matthäus was fantastic. Van Basten was fantastic. Gascoigne was fantastic. Zidane was fantastic, but they're not that level. They're not Messi and Ronaldo level because they are legends of the game. And you'll realise it. You'll realise it in years to come. And that's why yesterday, when Messi held that World Cup up, football was the winner. Because like Pele holding the World Cup, like Maradona holding up the World Cup, when you get one of those icons holding the World Cup, it's there in history. And I don't think Ronaldo winning the World Cup had to be a requirement. Because as I said, there's players that were never going to win the World Cup that were George Best was amazing. Never won the World Cup. Never going to win the World Cup. Portugal have never won the World Cup. The expectation that Ronaldo had to win I've heard people say, well, Messi won a World Cup, so the debate's over. Not really. Not really. Portugal have not got a tradition of winning a World Cup. Argentina have. It's a big, big thing to be able to do that. I'm not saying Portugal couldn't have won a World Cup, but I'd have bet good money that Messi had a better chance of winning it than Ronaldo because he's Argentinian. Erling Haaland could become the greatest goal scorer ever. He's never going to win the World Cup. And Erling Haaland could become the greatest goal scorer ever because goal scoring is not this is where people start talking about stats, isn't it? Goal scoring doesn't make you the best player in the world. There's a lot more than that. There's a lot more than that. Yeah, I agree with Frostbite. You won't see Ronaldo's flair and excitement, fast feet, or Messi's dribbling, playmaking for a long time. Yeah, they're just. I've been privileged to watch all of their career. I'm sure a lot of you have as well, and they're just on a different level. And as I say, yesterday was just a special moment to see Lionel Messi holding up the World Cup, and it was just iconic when he was on the shoulders of those players. I just thought, you very rarely get that. Like when Solskjaer won it, that moment, you knew that was a moment that would be remembered forever. And you don't always get that in modern football. You get good games, you get people winning the Champions League, but you don't often get those icon moments that will just imprint in the football Bible forever. And that picture of Messi on the shoulders of the Argentinian players holding up the World Cup, I saw that and I went, that's the pick. That's the one. That's the thing that's just going to be there for decades and remembered, like we saw Pele, like we saw Maradona. An amazing moment. There we go. Anyway, look, I've gone on and on. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Really enjoyed the show tonight. Obviously, 2 days' time, 48 hours, we will be watching Manchester United play a competitive game against Burnley, and I can't wait for that as well. Thanks everyone for watching. By the way, we did put up our preview for the Burnley game this afternoon, so if you want to check that out and get in the mood, do check it out. There is no Erik ten Hag press conference tomorrow. Apparently there's a bit of a Q&A with some of the players, but there is no Erik ten Hag press conference, which is a bit of a shame because it would have been nice to see an update on Delo, which we still don't have, but maybe we'll get that in some website article or not, I don't know. Welcome to the Members Club, Dynamic Melon. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Fantastic, and we'll speak to you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching.